Hey, so thank you for having me here. I'm going to try to speak as loud as I can without losing my voice. And I want to start with asking you if you know what were the first words of Christ in the Gospel of John. First words of Christ in the Gospel of John. What was the first thing he said? Yeah. You can Google it. You can take out your phones and just scroll until you see red letters and what do you think it was, or it is? Any idea? What was the first words of Christ in the Gospel of John? What was the first thing he said in the Gospel of John? What would you say? What do you think it is? If you don't know, you can scroll. You can go to John chapter 1. No, these are the words of Christ. What did he say? What did he say? Read it. So what did he say? First thing he said. What was the first thing he said?
What does your concern come to?
What do you want? What do you want? Right? So our Lord has a habit of asking uncomfortable questions. Like with the paralyzed man, he asks him if he wants to be healed. Or it's like asking a drowning man if he wants help. Or when he looks at his disciples in John chapter 6, and after everyone leaves, he turns to them and says, "Do you want to leave also?" It's very difficult questions. Or when he looks at St. Peter and says, "Do you love me?" Very difficult questions. But that's by far the most difficult. What do you want? I think the topic today is something about doing good. But I'm going to try to convince you in the next hour and a half that we're asking the wrong question. 2 hours. We're going to keep talking until they're done, and then we're going to get into it. So the question that we really ought to be asking isn't whether or not we should be doing good. We know we should, but do we want to? Do we want to do good? And you know that the answer is, or at least should be, yes. But it's not always a yes. Why is that? Why isn't it that I don't always want to do good? Why is it that when I get angry, I just want to react in an angry fashion? Oh, they got a table. You know the saying, you are what you eat? I'll wait for the table and I'll tell you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. It's going to make it easier. Yes, that's right. You are what you eat, but it actually ought to say you are what you want. And the reason for this is that when you look down deep in your heart, what you find there becomes the thing that guides all of your decisions, all your actions, all of your habits, is really what you want. And it's about finding out what it is that you really want, above all else. Remember that compass in Pirates of the Caribbean that pointed to the thing that you want the most? Keep that image in your mind. We'll get back to it later. Between the heart and the mind, the fathers talk about the heart and the mind, the heart being the seat of the emotions. And when we look at scriptures, we see that the heart is like something that stands for the whole person. Because essentially what's in the heart is what the person becomes. So if in your heart you have love for money, if in your heart you have love for your ego, if in your heart you have love for anything, you will inevitably work and dedicate all of your effort, all of your energy from your waking moment to the very second you fall asleep to fulfilling that desire. So really, it's not what you eat, it's you are what you want. Now, what we're going to talk about a little bit is getting what you want to be good. But working backwards, trying to force somehow a behavior where we do good because we know we're supposed to do good, even though what I really want isn't that. It's performative. So it's just a show, right? It's hypocrisy. But deep down inside, that's not really what I want. What I want is something else completely, but I feel guilty, or I feel ashamed, or I feel scared. Guilt, fear, shame, those things, they can drive us to mimic this kind of good behavior, but at the end of the day, it's fake. And we're not fooling anyone, it's least of all God, right? St. Paul in his epistle to the Romans, in chapter 7, he says, "For what I am doing, I do not understand. For what I will to do, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. If then I do what I will not to do, I agree with the law that it is good. But now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells. For to will is present with me, but how to perform what is good I do not find. For the good that I will to do, I do not do, but the evil I will not to do, that I practice. Now if I do what I will not to do, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells in me." There's kind of a disconnect, and it can get frustrating at times, especially if our behavior doesn't match what we think we ought to be behaving. It can get frustrating, like I really don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, or I don't want to have this habit anymore. But you know, my resolve lasts for a day, two, maybe a week, and then I go right back to it. And it can get frustrating. You can get upset, and you go back, Father confessions, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm doing everything I think I should be doing, but I'm always going back to this negative behavior, to this behavior I hate. I hate doing this. Why is it that I'm really going back to it? And it comes from kind of like this false assumption. We assume that just because we think something means that we just automatically do it. So if I think, for example, I want to be an organized person, that's it. That's all I have to do is just convince myself that being organized is a good thing. Being punctual is a good thing, being on time, and all I have to do is just think the right thoughts in the right way at the right time, and then the behavior is going to stem from that. It's going to come from that, right? As long as I fully agree and I'm fully convinced. But we're not just thinking things. There is this analogy that a psychologist came up with called the elephant and the rider. Anyone heard of that before? The elephant and the ride. Anybody's been on an elephant ride before? Never? No, come on. You guys travel a lot.
Camel?
Yeah? Where?
African lion safari.
On an elephant? So you get to ride in African land safari, they have elephant rides?
Once years ago.
Really? Okay, that's cool. So,
I think was a couple of years ago.
yeah. And an elephant.
A couple of feet.
Yeah. So I mean, like in Egypt, you can pay the guy anything, give him something, and he'll like get the elephant to sing you happy birthday. Like it can do whatever you want. You can feed the elephant, you can ride the elephant, you can ride the lion if you want, if you pay enough. You can do anything. So, but if you go to Southeast Asia, this is a thing that's very common there. And when you go there, you see, first of all, these huge, big elephants. They're tied down by, a very flimsy rope around their leg. One of the legs tied down to the side of the road. And there's a stick in the ground, and that's it. An elephant stays there. The elephant doesn't have to stay there, but the elephant stays there. And the reason is when they're young, they do this, and the elephant tries to get away, but they're too weak. So they get used to the idea that there's no way I'm able to break free from this. And even though they get big and strong and they can break free anytime they want, really they could just literally walk away, they never do. Because in their mind, this thing is stronger than me. But anyways, the elephant and the rider. So the analogy goes something like this. The rider is sitting 6 feet above the ground on top of the elephant. Okay? And the rider thinks that he's in charge. Wherever he wants to go, the elephant goes. He directs the elephant, and a little stick, and he goes, this way, and taps him this way, and he goes that way, And the elephant goes wherever the rider wants. Now, as long as the elephant wants to go where the rider wants to go, everything is fine. But if the elephant and the rider disagree, who do you think is going to win? The elephant. 10 times out of 10, the elephant is going to win. If the elephant doesn't want to go there and you're trying to go there, the elephant is not going to go there. So what this psychologist is saying, that we assume that we're basically the rider. We're just these, talking heads, floating minds in space, and we're just pushing information to the mind, trying to convince the mind of something, to do something, to be something, to follow a certain pattern of behavior. But we ignore the elephant. The elephant is everything else that is about us, and it's a lot. And most of the time, it overwrites the rider. When, like St. Paul is saying, I know what I should be doing, but something else is driving me to do the exact opposite. And it's quite frustrating. So why is it that we're ignoring the elephant and just talking to the rider? Because the elephant controls a lot, controls actually the majority of what we do. The way we set up our lives forces the elephant to, or not forces, but makes the elephant react in a certain way. And if we set it up, we kind of assume that as long as the rider is convinced, the rider is really in charge, regardless of how I set up my life, the rider is going to, guide the elephant and tell the elephant which way to go. So my mind is telling my whole being which way to go. And we know this doesn't work. I can be convinced that I should be eating healthy, or I should be waking up early, and I go to sleep with this thought in mind. Tomorrow I'm not sleeping in. And then the elephant kicks in, and it's like 10 a.m., noon, and I'm still in bed. I'm like, what happened? I thought we had an agreement. I thought we figured this whole thing out. But it's because we're focused so much on the mind and not so much on the heart. And as it turns out, from the experience of the Desert Fathers especially, the distance between the mind and the heart can be quite great. It's the longest journey in the world. You can convince your mind of something, but to convince your heart is a different matter entirely. So, if we look at the heart, we see that the heart functions a certain way. It's built to function a certain way. It's hardwired to function a certain way. We're all built, created in a way to follow what we love. That's why Christ warned against the love of money, because we cannot serve two masters. As soon as you love money, it becomes your master, and that's it. You cannot serve God and money and mammon. So we're hardwired in a way to follow what we love. And it's pretty hard, very difficult. Something has to be seriously wrong for us to break this hardwire. We always follow what we love. No matter what we do or what we want to do or what we think we're doing, if there's something in my heart that I love, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to follow. It's really the kind of like, if you think of it like as, it's the engine that drives everything. It's the thing that drives our entire way of being, way of thinking. So on the one hand, there's the heart, the things that you love, the things that you long for. Remember when I told you about the compass? If you think of the heart as a compass, the compass is pointing somewhere. And in the movie, in the Pirates of the Caribbean, in the movie, the compass points to the thing you want most in this world. As if to tell you, like, this is how really things really work. You think that the compass is pointing you somewhere. You think that your heart, you've been born and raised in a church. My heart, obviously, oriented towards the love of God. Obviously, it's a no-brainer. But is it? Is it? Because as it turns out, any deviation in the compass, and we can end up in serious trouble. So there was this story about these two ships that left Europe. It was around the same time as the Titanic. They left Europe, and when they got to North America, both of them got there around the same time, and they thought they were actually about 60 nautical miles apart. But as it turns out, they weren't. And there was fog in the area, and they collided, and a lot of people died that day. And when they did an investigation, they realized that one of the captains had a compass that was off by 1 degree. By 1 degree. Leaving Europe, that 1 degree didn't mean much. It didn't even look like much. But by the time you get to North America, to the East Coast, that 1 degree meant 60 miles. He was way off. Now, these guys are not going to finish today. They've been practicing how they're going to clap. So like I said, we are what we love. And what we love is actually something we can do something about. What we love is we can make ourselves love something. We can play around with the compass. We can orient it in a certain direction. Any ideas how we can do that? How can you make yourself love something?
Make it happen.
Habit, thank you. Repetition. And as it turns out, anything and everything that we do has an impact on the compass. And the more that we do it, cumulatively, it builds up and amounts to the compass being reoriented, redirected towards something else. Have you ever been to the mall? Yes? Been to the mall. So when you go to the mall, obviously you see all the nice products and all the nice posters and the ads and everything. All of this is kind of, if we talk in church lingo, it's kind of evangelism. It's kind of telling you something about a certain vision for life, and it's telling you that if you buy this product, you'll be happy. Essentially, all these ads are like icons in a church. You look at the icon, and you see a saint, and you see it's like a mirror or a window. Same thing in the mall. You see these ads, and these ads, they tell you that buy this, you will be that. You see how happy these people are? Do you want to be happy? Buy this product. And you walk through the mall, and the malls, the way they're designed, are like these medieval cathedrals where there's no time. Time stands still. Right? There are no windows. You walk in there, and you have no, and then you spend some time, and you have no idea what time it is, or where you are, or what time in the day. Unless you have a watch, you wouldn't be able to tell. There's no way to tell what it's like outside. You're in the mall, you're completely, all of your senses are confined to the space. You see the mannequins, and you see the ads, you hear the music, even the music that you hear in the mall, it's kind of like hymnography. analogous to this. And the way it functions is that it forces you to kind of focus and think about what is happening in this space. It trains your senses to focus more on what's happening in this space. It's not to entertain you. It's not to pass the time. That's why in certain spaces where there's no music, there's no background music, the store feels different. The stores feel like something is different. But it's not that they're not doing this, they're doing it in other ways. So it's the same thing. The more you spend in the mall, the more you're convinced of this vision for life, where happiness is the result of buying the right product. Even if you buy the product and you're not happy, the vision is so strong and so convincing that you go back and buy it again. Even though you know 100%, I bought this 10 times and it doesn't make me any happier. You go back and buy some more because it's so convincing. And it's not just so convincing, it's because the more you spend in the mall, the more your heart becomes oriented towards consumerism. The more your heart becomes, the compass begins to deviate slightly, ever so slightly. And the more you do it, the more it deviates. Take the same image and come to church. Now you come to church, as soon as you walk in the liturgy, what do you see here in the church? Everybody's pointing towards the east, right? You're no longer the center of the universe. Even the phone is a liturgy. The phone makes you believe that you're the center of the world, the center of the universe. Everything is about what you want, when you want it, and how you want it. You want to check something, you can check it right now. You want to ask a question, you can get the answer right now. It's all about you. But you come to church, no, it's not about you. We're all here worshiping God. You look at the icons look different. They don't look like the mannequins in the mall. They look like they're inviting you into a deeper reality. And the reality is Christ. You hear the hymns. The hymns are not about entertaining the senses, but elevating them. The more we spend time in the liturgy, the more the compass is reoriented towards Christ. And it's really all about this reorientation process that we should be spending most, if not all, of our effort. Because like I said, trying to do the right thing, trying to do the good thing, if your compass is off, you can do it 1 day, 2 days. You can do it in front of a certain group of people, in front of your family. You can, but ultimately, there's a large element that's just it's a performance, right? Because my compass is really pointing elsewhere. Even when I'm doing something good, I'm doing it for the wrong reason. Even when I'm giving to the poor and needy, I'm just making sure that, I get that selfie and everybody knows that, look how good I am. I'm giving to the poor and needy, I'm giving back to the community, I'm doing something good. I want to end with this story. It's this Russian movie, and they're I think 20 years ago. And it's called The Zone. And actually, 20 years ago. Wow. 40 years ago. From the 1980s. Wow. To me, 20 years ago, I was like, wow.
We feel like it's
Yeah. So the 1980s now. So anyways, 40 years. So in this movie, it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of story, and everything is gone and destroyed, and everybody's trying to survive, and there are all these bad elements and gangs and people trying to just take advantage of one another. And so in the middle of all of this, there is something called the zone. And in the zone, there's a room. Once you're in the room, your heart's desire comes true. The room makes it happen. That's the premise of the story. So there's a group of survivors who hear about this, and their mission is to save the world. So they want to make it to the room and wish for that all of this goes away. that we go back to what happened before it happened, right? So we can prevent it. And they find a guide who guides them through the wasteland and all the dangers and perils. And finally, they're about to get into the room. So they're about to go in, and there's two people. One of the two people, he's about to go in, but he hesitates. So the other person asks him, why don't you want to go in? So he hesitates because he knows that the room is not going to fulfill what you want, but it's going to fulfill your deepest desire, what your heart truly wants. That's what it's going to fulfill, regardless of what you think you want. So the question they're left with, and they never actually make it to the room because they're sitting outside having this whole conversation, asking themselves whether what we think we love, whether that is what we actually love. What we think we desire is actually what we in fact desire. And they never actually make it inside because they're just not sure anymore. Not sure. And that's the question about that we really should think about. We all want to do good, or we think we should want to do good at least. But if we sit and think whether or not this is really our heart's desire, is it really like, do I want to be a good person, or I just don't want to face the consequences? Is following God, carrying the cross and following Him, is this really what I want, or is it, some sort of pressure from community to behave a certain way, to toe the party line and to act a certain way, and be the kind of person everyone around me expects me to be, or do I really want it? And that is the question. So if I'm not sure, I begin to look at how I'm living my life. I begin to look at my habits, and look at the habits not as a reflection of what I want, but look at my habits as a kind of indicator at what the impact or effects are on the compass. Because all of these repeated actions, they leave an impact. There's no such thing as as a neutral action or a neutral space. Everywhere you go is charged, positive, negative, and it affects the compass, right? So that's what I really want us to think about today, is where is my compass pointing? And once I start to figure this out, I can start to see how can I get it to point in the right direction? How can I get it to point towards God? There's this book called Atomic Habits. I'm sure that you've come across it. If you haven't read it, at least you've come across it. And the author talks about your environment is not filled with objects, but with relationships. With relationships. So they did this study on insomniacs, and they wanted to see how bad it is, how severe, if there are any exercises that would work, that would make things better, that would improve their condition. And what they found was that they put in one group, they told them, go to bed whenever you feel like when it's, not whenever you feel like, when it's bedtime. Bedtime is 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, go to bed, 10 o'clock. And they give them some exercises about no screens 1 hour before you go to bed, stuff about food and caffeine, instructions. And I told them, 10 o'clock, you're in bed. The other group, they told them, do not go to bed until you feel like you're ready to sleep. And if you go to bed and you feel like you're not sleeping, get out. And then when you feel again, go back in. They found that this group was effectively cured from insomnia very quickly, because all of a sudden their relationship with that part of their environment changed. Some people have an unhealthy relationship with the bed. As soon as they get in bed, they pull out the phone and they just scroll, and their mind is fired up. So we have to change that. We have to change that. Same thing with everything in our environment. We have to see, are these relationships healthy? Are they helpful? Are they orienting my compass in the right direction? Or are they in fact disorienting them, pointing them elsewhere? right? Yeah. Questions, comments?
I'm thinking about this, and I think the challenge is, first of all, what I'm going to say is not difficult to get. I'm trying to explain. So it's between enjoyment, satisfaction, suffering, and pain.
Yeah.
So the compass is always trying to avoid the latter, going to the first. And the thing is, most of what we want and what we need is put us in a point of imbalance and dissatisfaction. And we want to escape that point. So it's not about what we are getting, it's about getting out of this position of imbalance and dissatisfaction. That's why, like, whoever wanna lose weight, like, they don't care about that, they wanna eat the burger because of that hunger that I wanna get out of. The problem is that everything that is not healthy, not useful, doesn't build anything inside us, gives immediate satisfaction. But all the other stuff, spiritually, mentally, even physically, takes time.
Yep.
So the satisfaction. So the problem is how to deal with that state of imbalance and hunger, because I think that's the strongest arc that moves the compass toward wherever. Some lucky people, they find some dissatisfaction missing the mass in the morning.
That's right.
Some people find the dissatisfaction and the imbalance getting out of bed.
Yep.
So, I don't know, even in the same very, very young age, I find some kids jump easily out of bed and want to go to the church, and some other kids don't want to. I don't know, like, are we born with some preset settings or something?
So what we're born with, the hardware, is that you follow what you love. That cannot be changed. Now, what you love can change, depending on how you live your life, how you structure your life. Now, you mentioned some things that they feel good, so we do them. And obviously, if something feels good, I'm going to do them, especially if I'm a teenager. Teenagers, if it feels good, they're going to do it, they're going to repeat it, and no matter, even if it's poison, right? And we see like addictions with screens, with games, social media, all sorts of stuff, because if it feels good, they're going to go back and do it over and over and over again, right? And there's a bunch of states in the US suing TikTok, saying it's too addictive. And it's very harmful, especially to teens. Specifically because of this fact, like, it feels good, so they're going to do it. And there's no control. But again, with another study, they found that people who are the most disciplined rely on self-control the least. So it's not self-control that gets me up in the morning. It's not self-control that gets me not to look at someone in a lustful way. It's not self-control that gets me not to eat in an unhealthy way. Disciplined people structure their lives in a way where the unwanted habits, the undesired habits, there are 4 characteristics actually. They're invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. And the opposite is true. Good habits are obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. There is the craving kind of cycle. There's 4 steps to it. There's the the habit loop. The cue, craving, response, and reward. So if it's something you don't want, make the cue invisible. If it's something that you don't want, make it unattractive. Make it so that the way you set up your life, it doesn't fit. So I'll give you an example of that. There was a computer engineer who wrote a program that unlocks Netflix as long as he's on the treadmill and the treadmill is going a certain speed. So can you imagine this person ever getting addicted? Yeah, I mean, addicted or binge watching anything on Netflix? Impossible. Like, it's so unattractive. Like, yeah, I want to watch a show 20 minutes, half an hour, but after a while, like, it's not worth it. Like, I don't even want to watch anymore. Like, I'm too tired. And then you try to watch without being on a treadmill. It doesn't work. So part of it is that when you do kind of like an audit of your environment, you see the people you hang out with. And these people become kind of like a predictor of what kind of person you're going to be. So become part of a group where the desired habit is the expectation, is the normative. This kind of behavior, this is what the behavior is for the group. So become part of that group. Let's say you want to pick up reading. If you hang out with people who don't read, no matter how much you want to read and improve reading and read more, it's not going to happen. But if you hang out with people who do nothing but read, maybe not nothing but read, but who, actively are reading, and this is kind of normal for them, pretty soon you're going to pick this up. There's kind of like a synchronization process that happens.
Peer effect.
Sorry, say that again?
Peer effect. The peer effect.
The peer effect, yes. Tell us a little about that.
Peer effect, first of all, it's the tendency that attracts me to be part of that group. That's the first thing I have to check. And then when I join that group, we start to practice the same things together. And even if I'm start to learn, like if I'm new to sport,
yeah,
and I join the people who do sport, it takes time to learn. And if it's something bad, I can catch it faster. So it depends on where the compass leads me, like joining that group, then the peer effect will take control.
So there is a reason you join the group, but regardless of the reason, we all have a reason to be part of any group, right? But the thing is, once you join the group, you become like the group. You synchronize with everyone else. They have another name for it called the hipster effect. I don't know if you heard of that. So they did this study, this mathematician from Boston, Massachusetts, I don't know if he's in Boston, but anyways, he realized that hipsters all look the same. A hipster looks like with the clothes and the hats and the beanie, so they all look the same. So he wanted to find out if this is actually true, or if it's just something that, he's imagining, right? Or slurs against, hipsters and try and just malign them and stuff. So he did a mathematical model to try to predict whether or not this is true and to analyze how it happens and all that stuff. So his results were that they all look the same, regardless of what group they come from and how long it takes them to get there. They all, at the end of the day, synchronize, and they all end up looking the same. So when his study came out, a magazine picked up the study and did an article on it, and published that article and used a picture of just some random hipster, saying that they all look the same. So someone got very angry at the magazine and sent them a letter saying, you're using my picture without my consent. And not just that, you are feeding into this negative stereotype. There's no evidence, there's no data to support this, you're just feeding into it, and I'm going to pursue legal action. So the publishers went into panic mode, and they went and they checked with their team to see where they got the photo and if they got the rights. And so yeah, they in fact had the rights to use it, and they bought the photo and they paid for everything, and they checked in fact with the agency they got the photo from, and they said, who is this person? Who's the model? So they gave them the information. It turned out to be not the person who sent in the complaint. Okay? So they got back to him and they said, it's not you. So he said, I stand corrected. And he showed him all the evidence. So he said, I stand corrected. And it's weird because family members said it was me. Friends said it was me. I thought it was me. So the publisher, in a tweet, said, just by this whole incident, it proved that Yeah, they all look the same. Even the guy couldn't, even his own mother thought it was him. They do, in fact, all look the same. They synchronize. So yeah, you will synchronize with whichever group you hang out with. Now the question is, do you want to be like that group? You like them, you love them, they're a great bunch of people, but do you want to be like that group? That's the question. Right? And it's the same question with everything else that is in our environment. Right? Nothing is neutral. There's no such thing as, I'm going to go to this place, but I'm not going to get affected. I'm not going to get impacted. I know my faith. And we hear this a lot from teens. Teens think they're invincible. And because they think they're invincible, they think they can go anywhere and do anything, and they're still going to be the same. We know better, of course, right? So anything that we do has an impact, again, on the compass, right? Anyone you hang out with, any place you frequent, any kind of website, any just anything. If you're into any sort of habit, like watching a certain kind of movies, like cartoons, like it's going to affect you. Like the most, basic thing and benign thing that you think it will have zero impact, has a huge impact. And it's all cumulative, and it's bit by bit, so slow that you wouldn't even notice the change happening. But over, some time, you begin to see that you're becoming different, your choices, your behavior, your response to things is becoming different. That's why you come in on Friday night and you see all the guys, they all look the same. And I'm not joking. Same haircut. I come in, they're going to try to come in and pick up my son. They have this, cabbage head. And like, huh?
The curls?
Yeah, like the thing, right? The hair, and the big hair. And the same shoes, and the same Nike tech, and the same everything. And the same cologne, it's the same deodorant, everything is the same. And by the way, these hipsters, the reason behind this whole movement, the idea behind it is that they're no longer happy with mainstream. Mainstream, for them, is too fake. It's too much, like everybody's copying everybody. Everybody's, with the Starbucks and the iPhone and, the Stanley Cups. They're just sheep. They're all following. And the irony is that they become a copy of each other. Right? Because they don't realize, you will synchronize. That's why Christ told the woman who came into the Pharisee's house after he forgave her sins, he's like, get out of here. You stay, you will synchronize right back into what you left. No, leave. Any other comments or questions? So if there's one thing you leave with here today is, what is it that you love? What is it that you love? And is it what you think it is? And if we had kind of this life app, like the screen time app, that would tell you how much time you spent on each app. If we had something, analogous to this for life, how you spend your time, 24 hours in a day, what do you do with those 24 hours? It's going to start to give you an indication of what you really love, what's really important to you. Do you spend, for example, every waking moment trying to figure out how to make more money? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe you think no, but you look at the results, and the results say, yeah, there's something here. This is not something that you should dismiss. There's something happening here. Right? And that's why these two, the two people in the movie were afraid to go in the room. Because all of a sudden they're like, what if what we want isn't really what we want? What if what we love isn't really what we think we love? Thank you, everyone. God.